Hey yo guys, what's up and welcome back to Toe Tags Metal Reviews, and today we're getting our final review of Foregone by In Flames. So as you can tell guys, I'm by myself, no TV Fish. Where's TV Fish? He is out of town right now. He is in the great city of Montreal. He went there with some friends to check out the Elimination Chamber live at the Bell Center, so he's over there, but he recorded his part of this review remotely. So stay tuned for that. In this video coming up, I'm going to obviously continue talking here because we got some stuff to go over with In Flames. So this was one of our most anticipated albums of the year so far because In Flames is a big band. They've been around for a long time. They got a big fan base. They get a lot of hype behind them. They dropped some singles. We liked those. So things were really looking good. So through the week, I'm listening to the album, as much as I can, like we normally do. And I'm enjoying it. I think it's pretty good. But like a lot of albums, I'm struggling a bit. And what I'm struggling with on this album was loving it. Going from liking it to loving it. Now there's some moments that I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. But then there's also moments where I was like, I could do without this. So I'm very up and down, mixy, wishy-washy with the whole thing. So let's just talk about a couple things. First things first, the intro track. The beginning of all things that will end. I think this is a completely unnecessary track, at least for the length it is. It's 2 minutes and 13 seconds long, and it's way too long for what it is. I feel like they could have accomplished what they needed to do with this track in about 45 seconds, to be honest. Now, the first time you listen to it, it doesn't sound that bad, but every repeat listen after that, it feels like a waste of time. So I was skipping this song all the time. That's not a good way to start the album, in my opinion. After that, you got State of Slow Decay, Meet Your Maker. Both those songs are good, but I didn't fall in love with either of them. In fact, Meet Your Maker was like a highlight song for me at the beginning, and it kind of started fading out for me towards the end of the week. I kind of started going, it's not really as good as I thought it was, or as I initially thought, but still good songs, don't get me wrong. Then you got Bleeding Out, which is the first of two cool down songs, like we like to call them. Bleeding Out I didn't really like too much, but it's got a really good guitar solo. It's a good solo. I like how the solo starts. It just has a little bit of that extra spice that I like. It stood out. The rest of the song though was okay. Didn't love it, didn't hate it, but whatever. The Foregone duo, so Foregone Part 1 and Foregone Part 2, basically those songs came and went. We talked a little bit about them in our first impressions video if you watched that from last week, but these songs throughout the week, there was nothing special about these songs that stood out at all. Now the second of the two cool down songs, Pure Light of Mind, is, in my opinion, the better of the two, and this song started growing on me throughout the week. I thought this was a really well written song. It has a really nice riffs. I mean, In Flames is known for their riffs and their guitaring. It's kind of like their thing. At least that's from my perspective. But just the riffs, guitar parts on this song were really kind of shining. The best songs in the album was towards the end of the album. So tracks number 9, 10, and 12. So we got 9 is In the Dark. Really nice, hard, mid-tempo beat. I like that. That stood out from the rest of the songs on the album. Number 10, A Dialogue in B-flat minor, which is a song that TV Fish mentioned on the first impressions, and I agreed that it's just like, it kind of just stands out amongst everything else, and you kind of just, it's the chorus. It's just the chorus that really makes it stand out. It's just really catchy, and who doesn't like a catchy hook, right? Really nice drum fills. Actually, the drumming throughout this whole album is super tight, super clean, but there's some really nice drum fills in this song specific. But the best song for me, and it's very rare to have a best song as the last track, but the last track on this album, End the Transmission, I think is the best track on the album, and it's two things. Number one, riff, okay? It's got the best riff on the album. It's super catchy. You can just get behind it. It's just really, really good riffing. And there's a couple other things. One of them is a silly thing. Actually, they're both kind of silly, but one of them is the name game. If you guys don't know the name game, look it up because I'm not going to start singing it here. But the riff on this song, at least like the opening riff, and it plays throughout the song in different parts, but the opening riff, you can sing the name game to it and it almost matches perfectly. I was having fun with this all week. So I was picking random names, doing the name game to this riff, and it was making me laugh. I thought it was funny. The other thing I liked about this song, when he's singing the chorus and he says the phrase "end the transmission" or "we got to end the transmission," he rides the end. So he says, "We got to end the transmission." Obviously, I'm not singing it, but he rides the end, and as subtle and as pointless as that might be, I found it amusing, and I thought that was great. So my thoughts on this album are overall positive, but I wasn't like blown away impressed. But I'm curious to know what TV Fish has to say. I haven't watched his part of the review yet, but we're gonna throw it to him. He's gonna give his part, and then we'll do ratings. So let's see what TV Fish has to say.
Hey guys, as you can see, I am totally out of town right now. But I'm still going to be giving you guys my thoughts on Foregone by In Flames after listening to it for 1 week. And I'm just going to start out by a bit of a criticism here. I'm not a huge fan of the intro track. I know I talked to Val a little bit about it throughout the week and he said it's a bit too long. I agree with that, but even so, it doesn't really set up for anything. It doesn't really like add much. You know, I put on that track and not really care, and then State of Slow Decay comes on, which I think is just a better way to start the album. Like, just get rid of the intro track entirely, start with State of Slow Decay, because first track it's just you know, I never really found myself putting that track on and being like, oh yeah, this is something cool and interesting to listen to. I just thought to myself, I want to hear State of Slow Decay, because State of Slow Decay is awesome. And that song, I remember, like, listening to it, I was kind of getting a bit of flashbacks of when we first checked it out. And I'm thinking, yeah, this song is sick, this song is sick. And it didn't take long throughout the week for me to really realize, yeah, this song is amazing. Riffs are awesome, and it's really catchy. And that's a thing you could say about this entire album. It's very catchy, pretty much in a good way. I don't think there's really anything in this album I can say that's catchy in a bad way. There's no hooks or choruses that I was singing along to that were bugging me. I was having fun with it. Even with the songs that I didn't like as much, I still enjoyed that quite a bit. Anyway, and Eye the Mask is pretty catchy as well. But one thing that Eye the Mask doesn't have, that this album has, is a strong second half. The 3-song stretch of Great Deceiver through a dialogue in B flat minor is great. The songs are a lot of fun, riffs are sick. Great Deceiver has this cool D beat, which is unique to the album. In the Dark, that riff's nasty. A dialogue in B flat minor, still love that song. I loved it last week, and I love it now. The last 2 tracks, Synosia and End the Transmission, really good as well. So you have a really strong second half. That's something Eye the Mask didn't have. Bleeding Out still has a great solo. Love that solo, and I think it's a good break after the energy that is State of Slow Decay and Meet Your Maker, which are both great tracks. So regarding the title duology, I didn't really feel much about it back when we first listened to this album, and after a week, it's grown on me to the point that nothing about it bothers me. It's just there, it's fine, and I finally did find a link between them, because I felt at the beginning like, what do these 2 parts really have to do with each other? Because it feels like part 1 ends very definitively, and then part 2 starts and it feels like a completely different song. However, what I found was that it's the chorus. So in part 1, the chorus is harsh, but you can hear the guitar behind it. That comes back in part 2, but he's singing it clean. And I think that is pretty cool. I just wish it was set up a little bit better, and I think the tracks should have linked to each other a little bit better. I think that is one of the biggest things that makes it feel like there's a disconnect, is that Foregone part 1 ends, and then part 2 starts, and you think, these are supposed to be the same deal, but then when you hear the chorus, and you kind of listen a few times, you're like, oh, that's how they relate to each other. So the fact that it took me a while either says that there was an issue there, or maybe I'm just an idiot, I don't know. But overall, I enjoyed this album quite a bit. I feel like the riffs are really good, and I think it is definitely a step in the right direction for this band. I thought there would have been less clean stuff, just from what I recall from hearing the singles, but that's not entirely the case. Not that it's exactly a problem, because a lot of the tracks are tracks that I would say are really good. There isn't much bad I can say about this album in terms of its content, other than the intro. That's really it. Nothing else is particularly bad, and what's good is really good, and there's a lot of great on this album as well. So as for my rating, I mean, it was kind of tough throughout the week because I thought to myself, how much do I really love this? How many tracks really stand out to me? But when I look at this track listing, there's at least 5 songs I can say are great, and then other songs I can say are really good. There's not much I can say that's bad, so it's gonna get my toe tag for that reason. I think this album is better than I the Mask, a big part because it's more complete. I the Mask started out hot and then fell off. This album does not do that. It starts strong, maybe has a tiny bit of a dip, but then goes right back up. And I think it's a really good album. Glad that it's one of my most looked forward to albums, what I mentioned last year. So I'm glad I'm able to give it a toe tag this time.
Okay, so a toe tag from TV Fish, which is a little bit surprising. I'm not gonna lie. I don't think it's that strong of an album. I don't think it's weak by any means. I'm not gonna give it a toe tag. I actually meant to listen to I the Mask this week to kind of, compare and see how to rate this and stuff like that, but I didn't do that. However, I'm pretty sure I gave I the Mask either a 6.5 or a 7 or somewhere around that ballpark. And I feel very similar about this album just based on memory alone. So I feel like I should give this album a 7 because it's not weak, but I don't think it's that strong. I feel like it's kind of just, it's got some highlights, but most of it kind of rides a safe zone. But the highlights are good highlights. So it's gonna get a 7 from me. Toe tag from TV Fish. It's not gonna go on the list, unfortunately, but still a good album from In Flames. You guys should check it out. Leave your thoughts down below. Let us know what you guys think of this album. And if you guys are fans of In Flames, did they live up to your expectations? All that fun stuff, sound off down below. But that's it from us for now, guys. So subscribe if you guys are new to the channel. I'm Vile Self.
I'm TV Fish.
And we'll see you guys on the next one.